Welcome back everybody to the second part of this video editing workshop for Library at the Dock. Now you should have already got your Premiere project up to where we left off in the first video. If you haven't, I'm going to supply a file here. You can download this file called Atari Workshop 2 from the link surrounding this video, and this will bring you up to speed just in case you don't have your Premiere project at the same point that we left off from the last workshop. Now, when you load up your file, I'm going to purposefully do something here. I'm going to change the name of this media folder. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because Premiere saves the location of all your media files. It's going to try to look for those media files in the last known location. I'm just going to load this up, and we've changed the name so it won't be able to find those files, and this is something that is a common occurrence. If a file gets moved, or if the file name changes, or you accidentally delete something, or if Premiere just can't find that file, it's going to bring up this dialog called Link Media. So you can see here that it can't find anything. But you don't need to worry, because the search function is very good in Premiere. So we can just click Locate, and we know where our media folder is there, so I'm just going to select that and hit search, and you can see, yeah, it's found one, and you can see here the last known path. This is looking for Atari old.png, and now it's found a new path here, so we'll click OK, and it's loaded up just where we left off. So in this lesson we're going to start editing this video together. So let's go back to the start.
Could you please tell us the anecdote?
One thing I didn't explain last time is that wherever this playhead is, that is where your Premiere is going to focus on, and that is where you will be zooming in and out from when you press 1 and 2. So if you want to focus in on the end of the file, you can drag this playhead up to the end of one of the files, and if you press 2 to zoom in, Premiere is going to zoom in there on that end of the file. If you press 1, it'll zoom in, zoom out there. So I'm going to drag the playhead back to the start, and I'm going to press 2 to zoom in at the start, and we're just going to trim the start of this because there's a bit of extra stuff here at the start that we don't need. We really want to just start where he's starting to talk. So
could you please tell us the anecdote?
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, which was
we really want to start it from here when we decided to do the consumer Pong game. So I'm going to put a cut here, and let's have a look. I'm going to press 2 to zoom in. Now this audio, we can see here that this, where I'm highlighting with the mouse, that's where he's saying when we decided to do the consumer Pong game. And over here, that's where he just says when, you can see these sort of lumps here. If we want to expand that and make that bigger, we can actually come over to the left here where these audio tracks are, and you see how the mouse pointer changes to this sort of line with 2 arrows. If you click underneath there and drag down, you can actually expand this audio to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to work with. Now I'm just going to come over here, select all 3 of these files by dragging a square, and go Command K. Now Command K is going to cut there, and that's going to put a slice right at the start here. Now if I click away, you can see if I click here, it's going to select one of these files. Now we want to basically delete all the stuff at the start, so I'm going to zoom out a bit. So all this stuff here at the start we don't need, so let's get rid of that. Now I'm just going to select all of this. Now if I just press delete, it's going to delete that stuff, but really what I want to do is then also move these 3 files back to the start. Let me undo that back to here, and you'll see if I select all these files and I hold Option while I'm pressing delete, it's going to actually delete and shift all these files back to the start.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game.
Okay, so now we've deleted the stuff from the start that we don't need, and we're just going to listen to this file and go through and see what we can edit out.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, which was we took it to the toy fair, and we.
Okay, so you can see he sort of fumbles a bit at the start here. And I think we can tighten this up because we've got two different camera angles. So we can actually cut to a different angle and cut out some of this mumbling in here. So just by listening to that again.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, which was the, we took it to the toy fair.
Okay, so the way that I like to approach the edit is I like to actually put a cut where it starts to get good. So I think it starts to get good from we took it to the toy fair, which I can see is over here.
We took it to the toy fair.
So now I'm going to drag my playhead over there, and once again I'm going to select all three and hit Command K, and it's going to put a cut down there. Now I'm zooming back out again, and then I'll put a cut where it starts to get bad. So let's have a listen.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, which was the,
Okay, so I can see that it starts to get bad over here, where he says which was the, so I'm going to put a cut there. So I'll select all three, Command K again. Now, how we did Option Delete before, basically what that does is it shifts everything to the right of what you're deleting. It shifts it back forward. So if I select all three of these and hit Option Delete, it's going to shift them all back. So let's have a listen now.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, we took it to the toy fair.
Okay, that's really good. The only problem now is that we've got a jump cut. Jump cut is when it cuts to the same angle. And usually, you know, in pro filmmaking, this is usually a bad thing. If you're doing a YouTube vlog, maybe, you know, you see hundreds of jump cuts in there. But generally, we try to not make edits noticeable to the viewer. Any edits should be sort of discreet, and you shouldn't know that the video is being edited. So that's the goal here, is to try to make it all the editing very natural. So to disguise this edit, what we can do is actually cut from the A cam down to the B cam. Let's make sure that all these track outputs are on. So we're at the A cam now. We're reviewing this A cam because that's the one on top. Now we want to jump from what's on top, we want to go to this one down the bottom. And the way that we're going to do that is we're actually going to disable this file here. So we're going to go select this file here and go Shift Command E. And that Shift Command E enables or disables. So I can also hit Shift Command E again on that file and it will enable it. So if I hit Shift Command E, disable that, that's going to essentially play this file here, but when the playhead gets up to here, you'll see that it cuts to the B cam because this file is disabled. So let's review that.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, we took it to the toy fair and we sold none. And we said, what's going on? We know that a lot of people want to buy this. And it turned out that that the toy distribution.
Okay, so there's another little bit here which is a bit of a fumble. Maybe we can cut back to the A cam. So over here, let's drag it here.
And it turned out that that the toy distribution, the toy stores, didn't sell.
Okay, so again, I'm going to put a cut where it starts to get good, and I think it starts to get good at toy stores. So that's over here. Let's play.
Toy stores.
Yeah, toy stores. So that's where it is. Put a cut there. I can zoom in just to make sure the cut's in the right place.
Toy stores.
Yeah, that's it. Now I'm just pressing spacebar to start and stop the playback. So with the toy stores is where it starts to get good, and let's roll back a bit and see where he starts to fumble.
I know that a lot of people want to buy this, and it turned out that that the toy distribution.
Okay, so I think really it's after here.
And it turned out that.
And then we want to jump to toy stores. So I can see here, that's where he goes, So let's put a cut there. And once again, select all these clips here and hold Option and press Delete. And then we want to select the top clip here and Shift Command E to enable that. Now, I'm going to review this right from the start. Let's have a look.
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, we took it to the toy fair and we sold none. And we said, what's going on? We know that a lot of people want to buy this. And it turned out that toy stores didn't sell anything that was more than $30, and we were charging $70. And so,
Okay, look, that's pretty good. I mean, his facial expression does change there, and we can potentially, in the third lesson for this video workshop series, we're going to create a few assets, and anything that sort of stands out as a not a good edit, we can sort of put a motion graphics element over the top, or we can put a photo over the top and put some B-roll over the top of this. But for now, let's just get the audio sounding really good. Audio is much more important than the visuals in any video production. If you've got really solid audio that's edited well, people are going to be much more engaged than having some great visuals with poor audio. I'd much prefer to listen to great audio with even some shoddy visuals, because that can work even as a podcast or something that you're just listening to on your headphones and not even looking at the visuals. I'm going to explain something now about non-destructive editing. And Premiere is a non-destructive editor, and what that means is when you delete something in Premiere, it never actually deletes. And I'll show you what I mean. I've got a clip over here. I'm going to put a cut in there by going Command K, and I'm going to delete this part here. But if I hover my mouse over the end of that clip, you'll see it turns into this sort of icon here, which is called the ripple tool. And I can actually click and drag, and I can just extend that clip all the way back out to where it was. And I can extend it out the other way, and essentially this is the start, the very start and the very end of the clip. So we'll extend out until it reaches the end of that media. You can see here it says trim media limit reached on video 2. And the reason this is useful is because if you ever want to go back on an edit or find out what is just to the right or to the left of an edit point, you can just roll the clip back or forward to find out what's there. So the whole time that we've been editing, we've really only been using one tool, and the toolbar is over here. It's this little thin box in between the project window and the timeline. And we've just been using the selection tool this entire time. There are quite a few other tools here. I generally don't use any of these other tools, and I find it much quicker just to use the selection tool, because you can get to these other tools by holding down keys or by hovering your mouse over certain parts of the window. So for example here, if I just zoom in and I hover my mouse over here towards the end, we can't ripple further because it's saying here trim is blocked on video 2, so we can't trim further than that. But if I hold down Option while there, and it turns into this sort of icon, and that lets me move that edit point around, so I can move it right or left. And also holding down Option if I'm just to the left of the edit or just to the right of the edit, it will give me a sort of a yellow version of that trim icon. And this, when I do that, it's actually going to push that material out, and I can sort of have some space to trim across. Later in the edit, if I've gone through and got a very complex edit, and I thought that actually this edit here is a bit too tight, and there's not enough space in between. I haven't left enough breathing space for Nolan to get from this word to the next word. So let's have a listen now.
And it turned out that toy stores.
So just say I thought that I wanted to add a breath in there. It was a bit too tight. So what I could do is actually select all 3 of these clips, hold down Option, and then roll that back a little bit. And it's actually going to give me a bit more space there.
The toy stores.
So I've actually brought in the as well, which also works.
And it turned out that the toy stores didn't sell anything.
So that's actually all working really well. Now, there's a few funny little sounds in here. There's
Toy
sort
stores.
of some sort of sound of something hitting there, which is also making this edit not that great. So what I would actually probably do is I can select all these, and there's a sound here that I don't want, so I'm going to actually roll this back that way. And that's going to drag those in. And I held down Option there to do that trim.
And it turned out that the toy stores...
I actually think that's a better edit. Now, there's a funny little click down here, and that's because this bit of audio and this bit of audio sort of just jammed up next to each other, and we need to fade this audio out and fade this audio in so that it sort of smoothly transfers from this audio to that audio. And the way we can do that is put in a crossfade. So if we just select the middle, that edit point there by clicking in the middle, and we're going to press Shift D, which is Apply Default Transition. And that's put this little crossfade in there. Let's have a listen to that. That's basically going to smoothly bring this file down and smoothly bring the other file up.
Turned out that the toy store...
Now there was a tiny bit of that funny sound there. And I know that that sound is over here somewhere because it's just after this little bit here. So I'm actually going to click that, and remember I held down Option, and I'm going to move this edit point across a little bit, even with the crossfade there.
Turned out that the toy stores...
So that's a clean piece of audio now.
And it turned out that the toy stores...
So that's actually working really well. And I would probably go across and go to this edit point. And remember, if I'm going to be focusing on this edit point, I want to move the playhead across to there, because when I zoom in, it's going to zoom in on that point. Now this looks like it will be fine to just add in a crossfade there. Remember, I press Shift D. Let's have a listen.
We took it to the toy fair.
So that sounds fine. Now, if you pressed Shift D on a piece of video, it's going to apply the default dissolve transition for a video, which will be a cross dissolve. So that's basically a fade in for video. Now I'll just show you what that looks like. If I put a dissolve at the start of this whole thing, that's going to fade in from black. And the reason that I deleted this clip underneath was because if I put the fade there, it's gonna sort of fade in from the clip underneath, which will look a bit weird. Now I'm going to explain about the best way to review your material, and that is full screen. Say we've done a whole load of different edits and we are happy with how things are going, but we just want to watch what we've made. Now, if you press play, you don't want to watch it in this tiny little window here. If you want to make it full screen, the easiest way to do that is by using the tilde key. Now, the tilde key is on the left-hand side of your keyboard to the left of the number 1, and it's above tab. So it's in the corner up there below escape. Now, what you need to do is hold down Control and press tilde. And that's actually going to bring it full screen. So when you press play...
When we decided to do the consumer Pong game, we took it to the toy fair, and we sold none. And we said, what's going on? We know that a lot of people want to buy this. And it turned out that the toy stores didn't sell anything that was more than $30.
Press Control tilde again to come out of the full screen. Now, tilde will also enlarge any of the different windows that are in Premiere here. So if we want to focus in on the timeline, if you hover the mouse over the timeline and press tilde, it's going to make that timeline full screen. And you can press tilde again to bring it back down. Now if I hover the mouse over, I don't need to click on it. If I just hover the mouse over the project window, I can make the project window full screen by pressing tilde. And it's quite a useful thing, because sometimes you want to just do an edit and you're just listening to the audio. You don't actually need to listen to the video. You can just make this full screen and give yourself more screen real estate to work with. So always remember that you can press tilde to get back to where you were. The other thing that you can do with the display of Premiere is you can actually resize any of these boxes. So if you hover your mouse over the edges of the timeline here, you'll notice that it makes this sort of icon here. You actually click and drag that up and make that bigger. And if you want to reset back to where you were, go up to Window, Workspaces, and reset to saved layout. And then it will bring it back to where you were. We're at the end of this video editing lesson. I'd like to assign you guys a little bit of homework between this lesson and the next, and that is quite simply to go through the rest of this interview, and it's only 2 minutes 46 long, and edit out any bits that you think are fumbly or mumbly or don't really work, and you can just follow the same processes that I explained, just putting a cut at the end of the fumble where it starts to get good again, and a cut where the start of the fumble is where it starts to get bad, and then selecting all and pressing Option Delete, and then clicking on the camera and Shift Command E to enable. You should just be cutting between the cameras A to B to A to B all the way through the rest of this file. And I know at the end here we run out of the A cam, but just go through and just get a really solid audio track to making that sound really good. And I'll see you in the next class.